Good morning, everyone, and thank you for waking up with me, Up with India. Today is Wednesday, October 21st, 2020, and here's your morning update. According to BBC News, a number of people taking part in a protest against police brutality have reportedly been shot dead or wounded in Nigeria's biggest city, Lagos. Witnesses said up to 12 people were killed and others wounded when soldiers opened fire. Amnesty International said it had credible reports of deaths. The state governor said about 25 people had been wounded, but denied that there were any fatalities. An indefinite 24-hour curfew has been imposed on Lagos and other regions. Protests over a now disbanded police unit, the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, SARS, have been taking place for 2 weeks, with demonstrators using the social media hashtag #EndSARS to rally crowds. Protests began nearly 2 weeks ago with calls for the SARS police unit, which has been accused of illegal detentions, assaults, and shootings, torture, and murder, to be disbanded. BBC reports as tensions continue to rise on Wednesday, police in different districts of Lagos fired shots in the air to disperse protesters defying the curfew. The BBC's Nduka Oranjimo reports from the capital, Abuja. Witnesses say otherwise. Protesters who briefly gathered again at the Lekki toll gate where Tuesday's shooting took place were forced out by police. In a statement on Wednesday, President Buhari did not directly refer to the shootings, but called on people to have patience as police reforms gather pace. The army has not issued a statement on the events in Lekki, but in several Twitter posts, it described media reports as fake news. Former U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton called on President Buhari and the army to stop killing young #EndSARS protesters. And former U.S. Vice President Joe Biden, who is going against President Donald Trump in the next month's election, also urged authorities to end the violent crackdown on protesters. President Buhari dissolved the unit on October 11th, but the demonstrators called for more changes in the security forces as well as reforms to the way the country is run. That story is still developing. In more news, according to CNN, the Breonna Taylor grand jury was not given an opportunity to consider homicide charges in the case against police officers who served a no-knock warrant at her home the night she was killed, an anonymous member of the panel said Tuesday. The statement came shortly after a Kentucky judge ruled the grand juror may speak publicly about the case presented by Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron. The anonymous grand juror wrote in a statement issued by attorney Kevin Gloger that the grand jury did not have homicide offenses explained to them, and self-defense or justification was never explained either. Grand juries are intended to be secret, with some exceptions, following the ruling of Jefferson County Circuit Court Judge Annie O'Connell, and sheds further light on a case that has led to protests around the country and exemplified the ways that the war on drugs disproportionately hurts Black Americans. 26-year-old Breonna Taylor was fatally shot by Louisville Metro Police Department officers who broke down her apartment door during a drug raid on March 13th. The grand juror said the panel was only presented with wanton endangerment charges against one officer involved in the police shooting in March. And some legal experts have said it's curious Cameron didn't seek any of Kentucky's homicide charges to begin with. And CNN senior legal analyst Laura Coates said earlier this month that it's rare for grand juries to go beyond the statutes a prosecutor presents. Former Louisville Metro Department police officer Brett Hankinson was charged with 3 counts of felony wanton endangerment, but none of the other officers involved in the raid were directly charged with Taylor's death. Hankinson has pleaded not guilty to those charges, and no other officers were charged. So what will happen in the case of Breonna Taylor? That story is still unfolding. In more news, according to WHYY Matt Katkoff, despite a federal judge order that the government reunite families who had been separated at the U.S. Mexico border under the Trump administration's no-tolerance migration policy, the parents of 545 children still can't be found. According to a court document filed Tuesday by the U.S. Justice Department and the American Civil Liberties Union, thousands of families were separated under the policy before the Trump administration ended the practice in 2018. The ACLU successfully sued the government, winning a court order to reunite families Thousands of parents and children were reunited within weeks, but about 1,000 families who had been separated in a pilot program in 2017 were not covered by the initial court order. Reunification of this group was ordered only last year. The passage of time has made both finding parents and children more difficult. And the update on the reunification efforts was filed ahead of a status conference scheduled for Thursday before U.S. District Judge Dana Sabra in San Diego, California. The filing estimates 2/3 of separated parents and are believed to have returned to their home countries. WHYY shares NPR's Joel Rose reports that the children initially went into a shelter system before being placed with sponsors across the country, and that many will likely try to remain in the United States. The ACLU's Gerland says about 360 of the children still have not been located. In more news, Delaware Online reports a crash involving an overturned tractor trailer Wednesday morning closed an off-ramp on Route 1 at the Roth Bridge in Middletown, according to the state's Department of Transportation. The crash occurred around 6:20 a.m. at the Lorwood Grove off-ramp, exit 148, which takes drivers from the south lanes of Route 1 to the south lanes of Route 13. The state's Department of Transportation recommends using exit 142 to access Route 13 from Route 1. The agency said it expects an extended closure for cleanup, and the tractor trailer damaged a significant amount of guardrail that will need to be replaced. In more news, according to WDEL, the state has submitted its playbook to the Centers for Disease Control as it prepares for any kind of novel coronavirus COVID-19 vaccine implementation. Delaware Division of Public Health Director Carol Rade said on Tuesday. Rade also shared that state officials are now at a point where it's critical that they work with a variety of different groups and that they have a task force that's going to begin weekly meetings starting this Friday. According to WDEL reporter DJ McNee, the state will take a phased approach as access to any COVID-19 vaccine will be deployed in restricted quantities, and officials will need to prioritize access for critical populations based on recommendations that will come from the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices. Officials will also be getting technical assistance for the immunization information system. Dr. Carol Rade said that officials would be keeping an eye on vaccines and clinical trial right now to ensure they were safe for distribution. Governor John Carney said he expected new information on vaccine availability as early as the next couple of weeks. Governor Carney also said, obviously, the sooner the better, but in the meantime, they need to continue to take the protective measures to keep Delawareans safe and to keep the spread of the virus down to a minimum to moderate level here in the state. In more news, Delaware Online Brandon Holvik reports Delaware State Police investigated an apparent shooting at a Wawa convenience store on Route 40 in Bear early Wednesday morning. Investigators focused on a red SUV parked directly in front of the store, located at 1100 Pulaski Highway, surrounded by more than 24 evidence markers, broken glass, a small amount of cash, and other debris. The investigation unfolded shortly after midnight. Police did not immediately reply to a request for comment. In more news, according to WHYY Katie Meyer, Barack Obama is visiting Philadelphia Wednesday to stump for Joe Biden. It will be the former president's first in-person campaign event anywhere this election cycle. Details of Obama's visit are still trickling out, but his first stop is expected to feature a conversation with local Black men about the importance of voting. He will finish off the day with what the campaign is calling a drive-in rally outside Citizen Bank Park sometime in the early evening. The campaign says due to the coronavirus concerns, the Citizen Bank Park event won't be open to the general public, and a limited number of tickets are available, but they are being distributed to select supporters via local officials. The rally will also be live streamed on Biden's campaign website. What are your thoughts on today's news? Don't forget to like and share on Facebook and Instagram at WITN22Wilm. Thank you so much for watching Up with India. For more news, updates, and information, follow us on social media at WITN22Wilm.